So did ESPN just kind of cost Matt McGloin his job?
What does this team need to do on offense to get something going here?
We need to change the whole entire game plan at halftime.
What do you need to change about the game plan? What are you frustrated about?
There's just a lot going on right out now. It's embarrassing for us here as an offense, so a lot of things we want to fix and correct.
Thanks.
Wow.
I love this league.
Gentlemen, this is the XFL.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of XFL 4Play. Week 2 is in the books, folks, and we have learned a lot about the teams in this league in this very young season and, I guess, league. But we've definitely learned a lot. Let's break down each and every game, and we'll give you the Jake's XFL Expert Power Rankings for Week 2, heading in to Week 3. All right, first up, this I thought was going to be the game of the weekend. I think a lot of people did. We had the New York Guardians, who in my power rankings coming into this game were at number 3. You had the DC Defenders at number 2, so we knew there was going to be a shakeup. I just didn't expect the DC Defenders to lay an absolute butt-whooping on the New York Guardians here in Week 1. 27-0. I think the biggest story from this game, though, isn't just the points, it's the defense. And, you know, the XFL Twitter, which, by the way, if you aren't following the XFL Twitter, you need to, because actually just all 8 teams and the official XFL Twitter account, because I don't know who's running those accounts, but it's great. It's prime content. They said on their Twitter, they're called defenders for a reason. This defense, and I said it last week, I said it here in Week 2, I'll probably say it the rest of the season. The DC Defenders' strength is their defense. They cause turnovers. They made Matt McGloin lose his job pretty much. I mean, he threw for 44 yards and 2 interceptions. He had a QBR of 10.1. That's nearly impossible to have that low of a quarterback rating. Unbelievable. So they dominate, and they show to me that there's going to be probably a shakeup in the power rankings. The DC Defenders look great. Cardell Jones, he looks like an escape artist. I don't know how he made those plays sometimes, and we'll definitely talk about some other escape artists coming up here on the next games. DC wins big. I'm interested to see what they're going to do next week. Next week, they're going to be going on the road against the LA Wildcats, their first road game of the season. But based on what I've seen from the Wildcats and what I've seen from the Defenders, I like their chances. Moving on to the next game on Saturday, it was my Vipers taking on the Seattle Dragons. And I had low expectations coming into this game. We all saw last week's episode of XFL 4Play. If you didn't, go check it out and then come back and watch this one. But I will tell you, I wasn't happy with the product that I saw on the field. I was very upset. And this week, different story. Yes, the Vipers lost, but I think it was a better effort than Week 1, and they looked like a more complete team in Week 1 defensively. Their defense played incredibly well, and I think the reason they gave up more points in the second half, I mean, one of those touchdowns that the Seattle Dragons got was off a weird, well, here.
Intercepted and touchdown. Wow, what a play by Marcel Frazier.
See, it's a weird play. If people forget that 9 points, the only touchdown that the Vipers have scored is because of this play.
Go. That one picked off. He threw it behind Hamlet and right into the arms of Tavarius McFadden, who's down the sideline with an escort and into the end zone for the touchdown.
And they were up 9-0 at one point, gave up 17 unanswered, and lose the football game. They lose on the last play. I think the biggest issue is Mark Trestman. You got to figure out who your quarterback is. You don't have the luxury of the NFL. And look, this is nothing against players in the XFL and the talent level in the XFL, but I'm just saying you don't have the level of backups that you would have in the NFL, so you can't just say, hey, next man up. You got Taylor Cornelius is your quarterback. You got Quentin Flowers, who should have been the starter. Just put in Quentin Flowers. Why are you afraid to play him, Mark Trestman? Is it because he doesn't stand there like a statue in the pocket? Is that what you want, Mark? What do you want? See what this team's doing to me? It's driving me absolutely insane. I shouldn't be screaming. I should be having fun. It's XFL 4Play. regardless of it, what happened, Seattle was in my top 4 for a reason. It's the only team that lost in week 1 that I put in the top 4 for a reason. I think they looked good here, but there are some definite questions about their quarterback, Brandon Silvers. There's times where he looked brilliant, and then there's other times when he just looked terrible. So there's a lot to work out for both teams. But if I'm a Seattle fan, I'm more confident because they got that W. Doesn't get easier for Tampa next week. They got to play Houston at home. Looking like they're going to be the first 0-3 team in the league. Moving on to Sunday, the first game, it's 2 winless teams going at it. The Dallas Renegades taking on the LA Wildcats. And this game was bad. I'll be honest. It got better in the fourth quarter. It's kind of similar to what we saw with Seattle and Tampa. Very defensive, hard-nosed game. It was 3-0 at halftime. This game was 3-3. Very similar things. But I think it was worse in this case because it was turnover after turnover after turnover. Landry Jones threw 2 picks. There's a couple of fumbles for LA. And then also, I believe, Josh Johnson threw an interception. It was not a good-looking game. It got better in the second half. The points came, and we got our first ever 3-point conversion. And while we're mentioning things, I forgot to give DC credit. I talk about how great their defense is. They gave us the first double forward pass. See, we're learning all about how fun these rules can be applied in the XFL. I was very upset. I was hoping, by the way, that the Vipers would have scored and gone for 2 and tied it and played the overtime period. Now, granted, they could have won, gotten the 9 points because that's how the XFL works. We got those 3-point conversions. But they didn't do either. They lost because, they're my team, so they're going to lose. Back to what we were talking about, the Renegades going against the Wildcats. An interesting dynamic. You thought both these guys would have started week 1 coming in. They didn't. Then we got to see them now. I think Landry Jones still has a lot to work out with this offense. I didn't think he was on the same page with a lot of his receivers, and it kind of shows. Probably take care of that and fix it up next week. And Bob Stoops continues to show you how good of a coach he is. When he was at Oklahoma, he had an unbelievable record at winning football games after a loss. As far as I remember, I don't remember him having back-to-back losses as a head coach for the Oklahoma Sooners. I could be wrong about that. Don't quote me. So Dallas finally gets a W. They win here 25-18. I got to give credit to the Wildcats. They rallied late. It was 19-9 at one point. But again, thanks to that 3-point conversion rule, 10 points is only a 1-possession game. They got a touchdown, got the 3-point conversion. It was 19-18. But then, of course, the Renegades finished them off in the end. Held on to win this one. Interesting matchup, and we might see again some changing here on the XFL power ranking. And the last game of the weekend, probably the best game of the weekend, it was the Houston Roughnecks taking on the St. Louis Battlehawks, and that was a fun ball game. That was another kind of low-scoring game in the beginning, and then it really took off, and man, oh man, is Houston a good team. Woo boy, PJ Walker looking like Houdini.
Allen, here you see on the touchdown, just his ability to move around in the pocket. It gives Phillips, that wasn't even Phillips' original route, and look at this, right under the defensive lineman.
And I don't know how this keeps happening, how this is the kind of dynamic we have. Also, I got to give credit to Houston's defense here. Their defense had 2 picks in this game, played incredibly well. I know all the credit will go to June Jones's offense and P.J. Walker throwing touchdowns, which, by the way, he's responsible for 7 touchdowns in this league, and that's tied for the D.C. Defenders' whole entire team. Not one person, the whole entire team. So he's playing incredibly well, and it shows to me the top 2 teams in this league, again, going into week 3, are the DC Defenders and the Houston Roughnecks. Where are they? In order. We'll find out in a minute. I got to give a lot of credit as well to the Battlehawks. St. Louis Battlehawks have really surprised me. I didn't think they were going to beat Renegades week 1. They showed up. They did it. And they played hard. They dug themselves a hole here, came back, almost shocked the Houston Roughnecks in the XFL as a whole, but just not quite there. And when you're playing a team like Houston, they're going to find ways to win. So that's been your wrap-up for week 2. Heading into week 3, let's give you some power rankings. And again, we go from 8 to 1. Let's start it off. At number 8, we got to change. I know it sounds silly to do. They only lost by a touchdown. Is either one. You could flip-flop them, but I got to go LA Wildcats at number 8. And it's just because that's where I had to put them. I wanted to keep them at 7, but I feel like they dipped a little bit more for me. I don't know. It's just they seem to not be able to finish football games, and trust me, I know all about that. The Vipers, They get in the red zone. They don't know what to do with their lives. They have a great they have a good offensive showing. They get in the red zone. They can't perform. I find it similar with the LA Wildcats. They just make too many mistakes, whether it be fumbles or interceptions, and they're the number 8 team. Again, you could probably interchange LA and Tampa Bay at this point. Number 7, the Vipers. As I said, pretty much the same situation. You could flip-flop them. It's just I think they played incredibly well for 3 quarters or 3.5 quarters, I would say. And then it kind of really fell apart for them. At number 6, this is going to be a huge change and a huge drop. I'm putting the New York Guardians. And it's not just because they lost, it's how they lost. They got absolutely dominated. Now, I know it's the DC Defenders, and they're one of the best teams in the league. They're up there with the top 2 in my power rankings. But I think the difference is the leadership. There was no leadership from Matt McGloin. When he got into a hole and they got in a bad situation, he called out his whole entire offense, his whole entire team, kind of threw him under the bus, rightfully so. He got benched for it. And when you don't have that kind of leadership at the top level, I mean, look what happens. Case in point, the Tampa Bay Vipers. They don't know who their quarterback is. They don't know who their leader is. And I'm seeing that happen with the New York Guardians. They dropped 3 spots down to number 6. It's just the way it goes, baby. At number 5, moving up a spot, I have the Dallas Renegades. They did play well. They won. They were in control for a good portion of this game. LA started to make a comeback late, but I like the Renegades where they're at. Landry Jones still has a lot to work out and figure out, but that's where they're going to be. At number 4, we have the St. Louis Battlehawks. I think even in a loss, they showed to me that they are a very strong football team. There's no quitting them. They played a very good Houston team and played them down to the wire. When we thought that they were going to be buried, they came, they fought, and they showed that, hey, this isn't what we expected. And Jordan Tamu playing a heck of a lot better than I anticipated. So the St. Louis Battlehawks, they're number 4. At number 3, it's the Seattle Dragons. They move up 1 spot because they beat my Vipers. And their running game is very strong. Now, they have to work out something with Brandon Silvers. He has not played well, but I do think their defense does enough and their running game does enough to keep them winning games. And so they will be number 3. And now this is where we're going back and forth, dropping a spot. I know they won, and they still are in the top 2 in the league, but I'm dropping them down a spot. The Houston Roughnecks, P.J. Walker, still slinging the football, still making plays, still looking very good. I think the only reason they dropped down to number 2 is because of DC's performance. And there's no way I can't put the DC Defenders at number 1 with a bullet because they've a 27-0 shutout. It's the first shutout in the league. And they looked incredible. And again, Houston, if DC didn't play on Saturday the way they did, Houston would still probably be my number 1. But the way DC played, there's no way I can't say that they're the best in the league right now going into week 3. So that has been another episode of the XFL 4Play. Like, comment, subscribe, all that crap that, YouTubers tell you to do. And be sure to check in next week for XFL 4Play. Quick programming note, if you're watching this on the Loud Opinionated YouTube or if you're watching on Loud Sports on Facebook, Loud Sports will be moving to Tuesdays now, so be excited about that. We're going to start recording on Mondays and posting on Tuesdays, so that will be a quick programming note for you that if people that listen to that show and don't just watch my ugly mug, there will be a quick programming note there. And I will be back on Monday to talk about Week 3 and get you ready for Week 4 with those power rankings. It's XFL 4Play, baby.